Hi there, guys. So my name is Dudley. I work at KILT Protocol. Today we'll be looking at digital identity and how we can use Web3 to protect that identity, and what software we have available as well. So yeah. So when I talk about identity, we can talk about credentials and verification in the Web3 space, because Web3 is basically inevitable. We're on the road, we're running ahead, and there's kind of no return at that point. So with Web3, there's been a lot of infrastructure being built at this time, but we need to start time to looking at building applications for the Web3 space. We're building it so that we can have our data protected, and we must do it in a user-friendly way. And it will be cheaper than the Web2 applications out there. So Web3 is going to replace Web2 at some point, and we need the applications for it. So I will touch upon some of these applications that the KILT team worked on. So mostly the Spiron wallet, and then the social KYC, and some other infrastructures there. So when we talk about the Web3, where is it right now? How do you know you're inside the Web3, and what does it even look like? Well, we can really just say, if you're in the Web2 space, you're logging in with your username and your password. But for the Web3 space, well, you're just using your wallet. You have your keys available for you, and so once you've gone there, you've entered the space, right? So one thing, we built the Spiron specifically for our use case here, because what we see in the space currently is that crypto wallets, it's similar. We can create accounts, show your balance, initiate coin transfers. But what we did also is that we couldn't do with other wallets is create digital identifiers. So obviously DIDs is a big part of our core concepts at KILT Protocol. So your digitalized identifier is a Web3 standard, and we follow that. So what we do is create this DID, and we anchor it on the KILT blockchain itself. So once you have this identifier, what can you do with it? I'll explain a little bit more in the presentations a little bit further on. And when you have your identifier, you also need credentials for that as well, because I'll explain this in a little bit. But yeah, so you can store and you can sign and share your credentials with the user's approval. So yeah. So yes, when I was talking about identifiers and credentials, this is what really is the core concept of what a digital identity is. And not just a digital identity, it's your normal real-life identity, right? So my identifier is Dudley. I was born, and my parents gave me that name to give me a way to identify to other people. And in doing so, when I was born, I had a birth certificate. That's my credential, right? I can verify that information, I can show it to people, and then from there, I can provide my identity, right? So at what point did we change this in the digital world? We basically said to the Web2, okay, me as a user or a claimer, I have my credentials, and so what I do now is when I come to the Web2 space, I say to myself, well, I'm logging in, I give you my credential or my email address, my user information, and I allow you to store it on a database, a cloud database service, whatever you want to call it at that point. And then from that stage, one thing we noticed is now we have to ask for identity from this service. So, you come to a site, you need to verify your identity, either your username or whatever have you, and then you ask a database underneath some enterprise, and basically they give you access to your credential, and then they also speak to the verifier and say, hey, this is their credential. It's a bit of an obtuse way of doing things. It's your data, it's your information, it's your credentials and your identifier, but in that way that it's strange that you have to ask for it. So what we see in the Web3 space is that we get a lot more control over this. We get our data back, and we get to be able to share it. So really, what we're trying to do is empower users to have that control and be able to provide this information to whomever they choose, and in a way that is verifiable and without really restraining the user at that point, right? So what we did is essentially created we used DID standard, and then we created credentials. And what we do is we anchor those onto the KILT blockchain by asking the user to speak to a trusted entity. So that entity we call an attester. So the attester looks at the credential and it says, okay, what is the verifiable information? And if they are happy with this information, what they do is they then write this credential hash to the chain itself. And so when the user has this new credential and their identifier, they can speak to the verifiers or a service and say, hey, this is my credential hash, this is my identifier. What does that look like? And so the person can verify this information on the KILT blockchain itself. And so what they can look at is, do I trust this attester? And if they do, then they will allow the user to use their services and provide that their service. Yeah. So I've talked a little bit about it, but this is basically the KILT protocol. What we do is we're a decentralized blockchain protocol, and we issue verifiable and revocable credentials and DIDs for the space. And additionally, what we want to do is we want to bring that trust from the real world into the digital space. You know, you have your passports, you have your driver's license. How do we get that into the digital space? And that was really like bringing trust to it. And so we're using this infrastructure that we've laid out in the last 100 years or so, more further, as long as credentials have really been going back, into the digital world again. So we're trying to take that physical aspect and put it back into what we perceive as the internet, right? So we want to provide developers the access point to take identity solutions and build applications that are not just for the humans or machines or anything. It's for anything that you can really conceive as what has an identity. It could be nature, it could be NFTs, digital assets, and all of that. So yeah. So what we've done here is just created a couple of applications for people to use. Basically, it's built on KILT for consumers and enterprises. So the first one is the social KYC. So I'll go into that a little bit. And then we have the DID sign and the Web3 name, W3N. So yeah. So social KYC. So it's a verifiable credential for a consumer. So we all have, well, most of us will have social media accounts. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to have a way for us to leverage the Web2's verification process, or I can't say this word, authentication process. So we all know KYC. We know your customer using governmentally issued credentials, but the social KYC aspect is to prove your identity or internet identity, and we're using like email, Twitter, GitHub, and all of these socials to prove that you are under the control of this specific social media account. So the user then, once they've been going through this process, they receive their verifiable credential and prove that they own this identity. And what they can do is they can provide this information to applications and other services, you know, from gaming, news, and signing in applications. So the great thing about it is social KYC, once you've verified this information from the attester's point of view, it then just deletes all of the data. It doesn't need it. It doesn't require any of your information, so the user can be assured that when they go to this site and they use it, they're not having their data stored. It's not going to be put somewhere in a database. Instead, it's just being removed and completely forgotten. So what do we see these used for? One aspect for the social KYC is being able to provide a GDPR compliant login, right? because now the user can use their Spiron wallet to log into a site, and that site just requests the DIDs. So what it has is a signature between the application and the user, and to use that authentication for different applications. So you can sign in, and the application doesn't even need to remember or store that data anywhere. It will just remember the identifier for that DID if it needs to, or has some required credentials enabled for you to use the service. So like a subscription service for maybe Twitch or something, where you want to go inside a content creator's site, and they say, well, you need to show me your Twitch credential, and you need to prove that you're following me in some sort of capacity. And so you can do this, you can disclose this information without revealing too much information, right? So this is one of the important things that we do, is that we can disclose selected information for this. And so once you have this verification layers, you can start thinking about other applications such as DAOs, metaverses, NFTs, and all of this to be used in this space. So I touched upon DIDs a little bit, and some of the use cases what we noticed is as soon as we started, well, we basically built and started using stuff, and we realized, well, what can we do with DIDs? Well, one of the things is we did or discovered is DID sign. So basically, what does that look like? It's a secure way to sign and verify files, right? So a user could sign a document with their DID. Then they can send it to a recipient, and that person could then verify that information and make sure that it's not been tampered with, and they can ensure by using the KILT blockchain that information that this DID is the one who it belongs to. So you have a lot of this flexibility once you come to signing DIDs or did sign. And one of the other things that we wanted to make sure is that it's free. You're just using your key management from the Spiron, and we want to basically be able to provide services that the user can use, because all they're doing is just using their keys from their wallet to sign something, right? There's no hidden thing going on here. So once that user signs it, the browser doesn't remember what you're doing. It doesn't care what you've done. It's not going to save this information. So that user can then choose who they send it to, and then they can have that verification process happen without worrying that their data is going to be stored somewhere. So one thing that we noticed about DIDs is they're fantastic, but they're a little bit inhuman readable in some ways. So obviously this lovely hex string here, 4S8KEP, is a bit hard to roll off the tongue. So we thought, okay, what a better idea is that we give them a human readable attribute. So it's part of the way that we want to leverage the current technology. We know people had usernames and stuff. So here you can see Ingo and the Web3 application, and so you can look up either with using Ingo or the DID hex string to find out important information, stuff that people want to share. Ingo has his service endpoints pointing towards his attested credential for Twitter, and it gives you his Twitter name, and you can see that it is valid. So we're using that Web2 authorization process in order to be able to allow people to see that information. And so it's a very important step, because Ingo is much easier to read and a better way to customize your digital identity. So yes. Once we are basically having this in the Polkadot ecosystem at the moment, but we are looking to expand. So you can do with your DID is account linking. So once you have your accounts on .sama, you can link individual chains to your specific DID. So this is a really important step for it, and this creates a recognizable layer of trust in that sense that you know that this account belongs to Ingo, and you can look at his Twitter feed, you can check this information and see that it's been verified. and you get access to his email if you need to get in contact with him. So it's a way for us to share potential information to each other and create that layer of trust. So Web3 is here, and with these applications, we're trying to provide it to a wider audience and to make sure that, you know, once they come into the space, they're able to create a customizable DID and identity online and be able to prove that they are who they say they are. And this is just using the technology that we've built over so long and created these infrastructures. So now the thing is, we really need to start building applications. So, yeah. Thank you. I was going to share a little demo, but unfortunately I'm unable to use my laptop here, so I can't give a little demo of the applications in use. But thank you for listening, and yeah. And I would do a disservice. I didn't show my legal team's legal note to them. Does anyone have any questions? No questions? Okay. Oh.
Yeah, maybe I can just ask.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry for the problem.
Yeah. Go for it.
Great presentation. Really nice project. What sort of projects are you building together with? Are there any Web3 projects that are already using services like social KYC and DID stuff?
Yeah, so just so I can repeat the question, is there any services being used with what's provided here? The short answer is yes, people are building. At the moment, we have a talk on the 31st of May where one of our builders will be showcasing their zero-knowledge proof against it. So they're using cross-chain here. So what they're basically doing is providing an NFT creation where they can have a ZK Schnark over the top of the credentials. So they want to be able to verify and give this information out to the user without revealing everything, without showing who owns it or anything like that. So this is a really interesting tool. So this is Zcloak. So they're currently working on this. And this would just be using KILT credentials to verify that they have this NFT. And then once they've done that, they use Moonbeam's infrastructure, another parachain, where they create that zero-knowledge proof there. And then when someone wants to request this information, they're able to provide the proof. Though I'm not too into the zero-knowledge information about this, so I can't really give any more details about that, but yes. Another team is Orgo. So they're looking to do fundraising and volunteering and be able to provide a compatibility with technology and nature. Like, how do we take this workflow, so they want to be able to provide volunteers with credentials to show that they're being able to do the tasks, and once they've done the task, they have these credentials in place to verify that information. So yeah, there's a few teams working on us with us currently, yeah. 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 Oh, I think the guy in the white t-shirt, yeah.
Yeah. So hi, I was wondering how is the governance and consensus of the chain, if I'm not mistaken, because I'm aware of previous similar projects like Sovereign, as I recall. There, for example, proof of authority, and if you have people's credentials over a chain, then I think it's more or less important who is and how is it being governed. How is it in the KILT, and how does it differ itself from the previous projects? Yeah,
so we don't store any personal information on the chain, just the credential hash. We're using currently the implementation that Dotsama has for the governance mechanism. So you would have a council and a technical committee, and you are requiring, I don't know too much details about that specific aspects of the governance, but yes, it is decentralized. So that means people can make votes and make referendums about specific changes to the chain and stuff. So yeah, so does that, yeah, okay. So?
Yeah, like, I wondered if, say, there's a separate chain, right? KILT is a separate chain on its own.
Yes, we're a parachain, so that means that we're using the .sum as infrastructure, and we're being a part of that, so yeah. Yeah, okay. Yep.
You said you were looking to expand. Any ideas or any tips or insight you can share on where you were looking into expanding?
Yeah, we're looking at different new concepts that's coming out from the Web3 DID standard. So obviously one thing that we'd like to see is the verifiable credentials from the Web3 standard as being part, or would be nice to start looking at that as an integration. So yeah. Some other things that we're working on, I guess documentation so that we can expand on like builders and stuff. So one of the big tasks that we've done, we sat down in the last few weeks, is completely do a new overhaul of our documentation so that we can provide more on-ramp for developers and other people that are working on it. So the expanse that we're looking at is trying to get people to build, because we're building a protocol, right? And we want other people to use that and those services. So how do we do this? We want to basically give it as easiest on-ramp as you can get. So yeah, that's one way. Yeah. Any other questions? Okie dokie. Thank you.